Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Maisarah binti Ibrahim Abud from Group 1. We'll be presenting our topic entitled Sex Education Should Be Introduced in Primary Schools. Adolescent involvement in sex-related social problems is becoming a global concern due to the rising prevalence of premarital pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, abortion, and other issues. The primary reason for the rise of these cases among teenagers is because the lack of awareness and disclosure about sexual knowledge at a young age. In 2015, the Division for Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations has developed the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The implementation of this subject will somehow to be related to quality education as one of the goals, where it aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Sex education should be implemented to introduce children to sexual knowledge, particularly at the primary school level, as this is an appropriate age for children to be exposed to the context. What is sex education? Sex education is a high teaching and learning about a broad variety of topics related to human sexuality while exploring right values to navigate the provision of skills necessarily for one's health in building the right relationship. Despite the importance of this subject, the implementation of sex education in schools has not yet fully covered all the important aspects. There is still no specific subject for sex education, and only a few topics related to it are covered in subjects like biology, physical education, and Islamic education. Besides, some sects of the public are still opposing the implementation of this subject in primary schools, claiming that it is inappropriate to discuss sexual education with children. The first reason why sex education should be introduced in primary schools so that it can assist students in getting ready for life changes as they transition from childhood to adolescence. Even though there is a social taboo that sex education is only teaching about sex, it is necessary for children to learn and prepare for what is coming in their life, such as puberty, menstruation, and even when they are in relationships. A thorough understanding of opposite sex body structure is required for them to understand the foundation of sex education. This is because they have been exposed to sexual content and portrayals in media, such as televisions, movies, websites, and magazines, which have caused them to have curiosities about opposite sex bodies, structures, and anatomy. Hence, providing them with appropriate body structure knowledge will enable them to learn in a formal setting without being exposed to inappropriate media sources. In addition to that, skills in intersex relationship should be taught. Students need to learn how to communicate with other people, especially with the opposite gender, while acknowledging distinction and sensitivities in the process. This will not only assist them in understanding the differences, but will also encourage them to refrain from engaging in any form of body shaming or appearance teasing, since they are well aware of the changes, especially during puberty. As we know, both male and female will experience a variety of physical changes throughout puberty. However, most of the children are unaware that puberty might also cause changes such as weight gain, hormonal acne, and body odors. This is most common among students aged 7 to 10 when puberty is uncommon, and some students may have had earlier pubertal onset than their peers of the same age. As a result, students who are confronted with them may feel uneasy and insecure about the physical changes that occur, and worse, will lead to depression and anxiety. The insecurities arise not only as a result of their physical appearance, but also a result of their changing psychological state. Due to the various effects of puberty on development, puberty may be a risk period of mental health disorder because each person's experience of puberty is distinctive. Because of that, rather than making them up as a joke, those children their age should learn about the effects of puberty on both physical and psychological states through sex education in order to understand and support them as they go through life changes. Therefore, it is critical for primary school age children to have a comprehensive understanding of sex education, which includes understanding gender role attitudes, sexual problems prevention, and pubertal changes during sexual love.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nura Shatira bint Abdul Razak. So I will continue for the next reason why sex education should be introduced in primary school. So sex education is preventing children from being the victim of sexual violence. As we know, sexual violence is now becoming a nationally sexual assault issue, as every country in the world has concern with the sexual harassment, whether it occurs among adolescents, women, and children. As your information, sexual violence creates an atmosphere in which everyone is uneasy and concerned about their own safety and is even afraid to act. It always terrifies victims. However, when children experience sexual harassment, they are even more terrified because they are unsure about what to do. It is very worse if they have never heard of sexual harassment, abuse, and violence, even unaware that they have subjected to it. Surprisingly, in Malaysia reported that they have 71 counts of child sex offences, and one of them is pedophile, which is including grooming and abusing, and it's nearly 200 Malaysian babies and children being the victim from 2006 until 2016. These offences happen because the children lack of sex education. Therefore, the concept of sexual harassment, violence, and abuse should be introduced to the children in sex education. One of the concepts of sexual harassment, according to Department for Education of the United Kingdom, sexual harassment includes sexual comments, jokes, and physical behavior. So it can occur without the victim's knowledge, particularly if they are indirectly joking and making sexual comments. Lastly, sex education can assist children to do something if they become a victim of sexual violence. This is because they understand what they need to do if they become sexual victims and potentially saving them from becoming the victims. Besides that, sex education entails teaching and directing and open communication with children about sexual issues as well as their roles and responsibility. Hence, it raises awareness among children that sexual harassment and violence can occur around them. So, when children learn about sex education, they will more exposure with sexual harassment, violence, and abuse. Plus, in sex education, children will be assessed to their roles and responsibility to they avoid from becoming a victim and what to do if they becoming sexual victim. Therefore, sex education should be implemented in primary school because it can preventing children become a victim of sexual harassment.
Hi, I am Amira Bitiro Mokhtar. Today I will continue the next point of the sex education should be introduced in the primary school. The stigma associated with sex education is one of the reasons why it is not implemented. As a result, removing the stigma associated with sex education is required, but how? The first step should be introduced that sex education is a curriculum based on an age-appropriate syllabus. This is due to the fact that delivering sex education based on age recommendation can aid understanding and raise awareness of the reality of sex education, which is not only focused on sexuality, but it is focused on ethical and relationship, whether family relationship, friendship, or society. Furthermore, in the Quran has been mentioned in Surah An-Nur verses 57 until 15a show that Islam provides some guidelines for sex education. For illustration, children aged 7 until 10 are taught about the manner, asking permission, and sight, while the children aged 10 until 14 are taught how to resist their nafsu, which is lust, and children aged 14 until 16 are taught about the relationship and sex. Moreover, the stigma about the sex education is embarrassing, shameful, and offensive as it is portrayed on social media. It is wrong because the sex education is not only focused about the sexuality, but it is related to our common events such as the concept of pregnancy and the childbirth, and it is depend on our attitude on acceptance of sex education. Sex education will help the children to understand the concept of sexuality, and it is highly encouraged to be open, honest, and confident when delivering and discussing about the sex issue among them, and it will build up their confidence to discuss about the sex. According to the previous research, the children prefer open and honest parents who become their sex reference compared to the shy and closed parents. Indeed, be open and honest is encouraged because it can assist children in understanding sex. To summarize, sex education is a critical issue that requires all parties to be aware and accountable in order to ensure that sex education is implemented in primary school. This is because the fact that children are exposed to social media, which is frequently spent time, and it is used as an answer platform of their curiosity question. And it is not surprising that the children discover sex and engage in unhealthy sex. As a result, sex education should be implemented because it is prepare students for the transition from the childhood to adolescence, protect them from sexual violence, and remove the stigma over the sex education. The Ministry of Education is encouraged to facilitate comprehensive sexual health education in primary school as the one of the authorities responsible for improving education quality based on our SDG goal. Quality education should outline the recommendation for how sex education should be taught in primary school. Regarding that, the implementation of sex education courses for teachers must be strengthened, such as by providing training on how to deliver proper on sex education. Last but not least, school must foster on every Last but not least, school must foster an environment that encourages open, mutual communication about sexual issues between teachers and students, in addition to providing age-appropriate syllabus and teaching material.